people like Chris Matthews, I have to believe that this is, if people monitor it, I don't know how many people listen, and I'm not saying, I have had him on my show a number of times, I've been on his show a number of times, that this is not an attempt to undermine his show. When I say I don't know how many people watch, I mean, he's obviously very well known, but I have to believe that among those who do, the credibility factor has been hurt as never before. Whether you agree with him or not, that does not hurt people's credibility, disagreement. But making a point that is so obtuse, so obviously driven by fear or by an agenda as to be bereft of common sense, that has to I think make some dent in credibility. If I just kept pushing an issue based on no common sense, people would look at an event and put two and two together, and I kept coming up with six. I think that over time you would wonder what's wrong with me. I played for you yesterday. Do we have yesterday's clip, Sean, as well, of Chris Matthews? I want to play that.
The investigation into that massacre at Fort Hood yesterday is still ongoing, and it's unclear if religion was a factor in this shooting. Okay,
so that's the first one. It's unclear whether religion was a factor. It's only unclear to people on the left. How come it was unclear, not unclear to centrists? Forget conservatives. It wasn't unclear to anybody. I mean, it wasn't proven yet, but it wasn't unclear. Unclear. If he'd have said not proven yet, and a factor, he didn't even say the factor, that it wasn't a factor. Oh, but it gets so much worse in the American media, from the New York Times to CNN to Chris Matthews, that this is, I believe, if you are fair-minded, it's a smoking gun. And NPR, by the way, I believe that we should use those initials. I was thinking about this. National Prager Radio. This is NPR, National Prager Radio. I know how to speak in those mellifluous tones. I went to Columbia. I have all the credentials, except that I think more clearly. That's the one that's a major, well, and I think in terms of right and wrong. What was yesterday's other NPR? What was that? Does anybody know? What was it? It was an incredible moment. Anyway, you'll find. Oh, that one. Yeah, you have that there too. Listen to this. This is
now, Tom. You've been looking into some of the stresses of military personnel being sent overseas.
That's right, Steve. You referred to the post-traumatic stress disorder. There's almost seems to be a phenomenon that you could maybe call a pre-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay, fine. You could almost maybe call seems to be a pre-traumatic stress disorder. This is now the favored explanation of the liberal media. It wasn't because of his Islamic beliefs. It was because he snapped. And how do you snap? Even if you haven't fought, you snap because you heard about fighting. So that's how you get the pre-traumatic stress disorder. What the politically correct, meaning morally cowardly, left has done, and let me make clear, not everybody on the left is morally a coward. There are some people who have, like Alan Dershowitz is morally clear. Joe Lieberman is morally clear. I mean, you have some people. Christopher Hitchens is morally clear. It's not universal, but that's where these people take issue with the left. I'm talking about the vast majority of spokespeople in journalism and academia and so on, and the inability to see what is clear here, that in this man's case, his faith was in fact the motivating factor. But you will listen to Bob Schieffer. I mean, this is distressing on CBS. He acting as if it's pure coincidence that it was a Muslim in his question. It could have easily have been a Christian who murdered his fellow soldiers. Listen to this.
Senator Graham, let me just kind of cut to the chase here. Do you think that the fact that this man was a Muslim, obviously he was either part of some terrorist plot, and I think most suggestions are that he wasn't. It's looking more and more like he was just sort of a religious nut. And you know, Islam doesn't have a majority, or the Christian religion has its full, you know, full helping of nuts too.
Okay,
but
hold on. There you go. That's it. So he was a religious nut. You get it? That's all. It had nothing to do with his religion. He was a religious nut. And the Christian religion has its full helping of nuts too. But I am not aware of movements around the world of Christians murdering in the name of Christ. Can you imagine if somebody had said, I don't, with regard to the Nazis or the communists, if somebody had said, look, you know, why talk about what's happening in Germany? You know, there are nuts all over the place. But at a given time, different nuts bearing different ideologies are more dangerous. What is a Christian nut going to do? What does a Christian nut do? Now you'll say, well, what about the assassination? And it was assassination of a. It's totally wrong. It's totally immoral and been condemned across the board by pro-life Christians. But that's not a nut. That's bad. That's a bad man murdering in the name of his ideology. But he murdered one person. The point, it wasn't to strike terror. He didn't go to Times Square and blow up Americans because of his opposition to abortion. Which, I mean, to compare is so unfair to Christianity and to Christendom. It's mind-boggling. Christianity has its nuts too, yeah, but who fears them? Come on, folks. Let's live on planet Earth. You put a crucifix in urine, and you get rewarded, not killed. Can you imagine putting a picture of Muhammad in urine? Can you imagine it? Or a Quran? Yeah, the guy making 2012, the movie 2012, blew up the major sites of every faith and every major culture, except anything Muslim. And he said, why? I don't want a fatwa against my life. That's the courage of Hollywood. But it is also, apparently, they fear in Hollywood, they fear Muslim nuts more than Christian nuts. The media.